God said you would be what?
Sold.
Would be what?
Sold.
What did they do to Hispanics?
Sold.
When they came and Columbus conquered America, Amerigo Vespucci, Ponce de Leon, what did they do to the Hispanics and Native Americans?
Sold unto your enemy.
What did they do to the so-called African slaves in 1619 and 1514? What did they do?
Sold unto your enemy.
That's why you have the last name Johnson. That's why you have the last name Cortez. That's why you have the last name Smith. Those are the slave owners. Those are the people who conquered your nation. You don't know your nationality. Do you find your father on this song? You don't know? You can read, right? Okay, that's a good question. So show me where your father is on here, and we'll go to the scriptures to show you who you are. Get Deuteronomy 28. Because a lot of times, you don't know what you are. Do you call yourself an African American? What do you call yourself? A person, okay. All right, so we're going to deal with that. You never, okay. That's a good question. Give me that Deuteronomy 28. Yeah, give me that 37.
Yes,
the sister asks, how am I an African American? I've never been to Africa. I'm gonna show you that. Go ahead.
Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 37.
So what we're reading is the book of Deuteronomy. Read on.
And thou shalt become an astonishment.
God said we will become an astonishment. You listening? Which is, when you look at the black man today and the black woman, the nations are amazed by the things that we do. But I want to get to the point here. Go ahead.
A proverb and a byword among all nations.
God said one of the curses he will put upon us is that we will become what?
A proverb and a byword.
God said we will become a byword. A byword is being called something outside of your nationality. Go ahead. Here's some examples. In the 1980s, you got, let me start in 1860s. We got, first we was called Hebrews. Then we was called slaves in 1860. 1900s we was called nigger. Then you got 1920s we was called Negro. 1940 we was called colored. 1960 we was called black. And 1980 today we was called African American. More just mean black. Exactly. Right. Exactly. It's the same thing, right? But we're trying to show you why. African American, we got Leo Scipius Africanus and Amerigo Vespucci. These are the men that we have. This is the reason why we have African American on us. Because of those two white men, those men who conquered our people. You understand that? Read that 28, the curse in the Bible. Listen to this, sis.
Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 37. And thou shalt become an astonishment, a proverb, and a byword.
God said it's a curse. That's why you call it African American. That's why you call it black, Hispanic, Mexican. God said because you will be cursed and you will be called bywords. For breaking, God said we will be called bywords. Byword is called outside because when you look at this song, sis, right here you got Judah, which is the so-called American blacks. That's what God calls us. You won't read African American in the Bible. You're not going to read Hispanic in the Bible. You're not going to read Puerto Rican in the Bible. You're going to read Judah, Benjamin, Levi, and so forth. Isaiah 65 and 15. You got it? Read that.
Isaiah chapter 65 and verse 15.
Go ahead. So we're gonna call you Judah today so you can know who you really are. From the tribe of Judah. That's an honorable thing to be called Judah. The same tribe Christ came from. Read on.
And ye shall leave your name.
God said, but, sis, what's your name again? Jar. Judah. God said, listen up, my sister. He said you would do what?
Leave your name.
You was gonna leave the name of Judah. Read.
For a curse.
For African American. Because when you fill out that job paperwork, you got to put African American or other. Other, which means you still lost. You still don't know who you are. God said, listen, sis, listen. Read it again. I need you to focus.
Isaiah 65 and verse 15. And ye shall leave your name.
The point is, God said you was going to leave your name for what?
For a curse.
For a curse. For you walking around here, not calling yourself anything, that's a curse. Because you don't know who you are. If you don't know who you are, you don't know how you're supposed to live. You don't know how you're supposed to govern yourself. Because I can look and I see you got the dye hair. That's not our culture. You don't know that. It's because you haven't been taught yet, sis. I can see how you dress. You don't know who you are yet. That's why God sent us out here to teach our people who you are. That way you can get this image out of your brain. That image is what destroyed our people. Because we walk around trying to look like them. That's why we put blonde hair in our head. That's why we put the color in our head. That's why our women walking around with the small shorts on. We walk around half naked with our ass hanging out. Because we want to be like these people. They taught you that. Deuteronomy 7:6. You got to understand something. You do have a choice. You can, but guess what you was taught, sis? Well, what was you taught? Right, so do you know better? You know better, but you didn't do it. You want to dress like this. You still lost.
Something that they told me.
Okay.
Because I have seen my African sisters how they dress.
Right.
I choose not to do that. That's my personal choice.
Right. Yep. Okay, read
It
this.
has nothing to do with what they telling me. Because I'm beyond that. I know what they're Muslim, but they telling me not real.
Okay, so if you didn't know your nationality, what do you know then?
My ancestors were slaves.
That's
My
correct.
bloodline.
Uh-huh.
How can I say what I am?
Numbers 1 and 18.
I'm more than one.
We're gonna get that for you. That's a good question. I'm glad you said that. Because we have answers in the Bible, all right? Read that.
This is the book of Numbers, chapter 1 and verse 18.
Go ahead.
And they assembled all the congregation together on the first day of the second month. And they declared their pedigrees.
So in the scriptures, according to our culture, we would declare our pedigree, our bloodline, or our tribe by what?
After the house of their family, after the families, declared their pedigrees after their families, by the house of their fathers.
By the house of your father, by the seed, the sperm of your father. You can't be mixed. There's no such thing.
Right.
If your mama's white, your daddy black, you still black.
Right.
Or what God calls us Judah. So our ancestors, when you see on this sign, yes, we were slaves. The Hispanics, the so-called Hispanics were slaves. The so-called Native Americans were slaves. We already know the so-called black man was slaves. We know that. It's thrown in our face every year because they are so prideful as a nation. They throw it in our face because they know us as a people, we don't care. Deuteronomy 28, verse 68. Because it sounds like you know a little history. I'm going to show you something in the Bible, sis. Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 68. Because you know we're slaves, which means what we about to read, it can bear witness with your spirit. Read that.
Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 68.
How did we get over here? From Africa. There's some truth to that. Okay.
After we already discovered America.
What happened? We did have people here first. That's correct. What happened in 1619? Or from that time period, you ever heard of the transatlantic slave trade? Okay. So transatlantic slave trade, they put us on cargo slave ships, correct? You familiar with that? That's when they was bringing more of us over here. Right. More of us, that's correct. That's when you read about the bulk of Judah's history, the so-called African Americans today. Read that.
And Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 68. And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again.
So listen up, Judah. God said he was going to do what?
Bring thee into Egypt again.
What does Egypt mean? Let's get that. God is telling us through Moses, he was going to bring us into Egypt again. When you read the history in the Bible, the Israelites already went into Egypt as slaves. All right, so we're going to show you the precept to prove that. Go ahead.
Exodus chapter 20 and verse 2. I am the Lord thy God, which have brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage.
So Egypt means bondage. Let's just jump back. Great. Moses split the sea. That's the history in the book of Exodus. So once we came out, Moses was giving us laws, statutes, and commandments from God. He said, this is what you're supposed to do. This is how you live. If you don't do what God says, this is the result of that, or the consequence. Read that. Deuteronomy 28 now. Now we understand Egypt means what? Bondage. Remember we just read Egypt means bondage. So read that again.
Deuteronomy 28, verse 68. And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again.
To bondage again.
With ships.
How did God say we was going to slavery?
With ships.
Who did this happen to, sis? Because you said you know about 1619. This is the transatlantic slave trade that we're looking at. These are the routes when they took us from different places from to and fro. You see that? We went from the Gold Coast. We went from, Benguela. We went from South America and Brazil to Central America, Haiti to Puerto Rico, to America. This is what happened to us. God said this is going to happen in the scriptures. This is the proof of what you said. Your ancestors were slaves. Read on.
By the way whereof I spake unto thee.
The same way I'm telling you it's going to happen is how it's going to happen. Read.
Thou shalt see it no more again.
We was not going to see our homeland because you said earlier, how am I African American? I ain't never been to Africa. Exactly. You ain't never been. You never been to Jerusalem, which is your homeland. Read it out. Let's prove that real quick. Let's prove more than that. Read.
Galatians chapter 4 verse 26.
Listen up.
But Jerusalem, which is above, is free.
Listen up, black and Hispanic man, Hispanic woman, black woman. God said what?
Jerusalem, which is above, is free, which is the mother of us all.
God said our homeland is Jerusalem. Our homeland is not Mexico. Our homeland is not Puerto Rico. Our homeland is not America. God said our homeland is Jerusalem. That's East Africa for y'all who don't know what a map looks like. God said this is our homeland, Jerusalem. Now go back to Deuteronomy 28. Because he said we would go to slavery on ships and we will not see Jerusalem again. Read.
Thou shalt see it no more again. And there ye shall be sold unto your enemies.
And God said once you was there, listen up, Judah, look at this. Did this happen to us? That did happen to us, right? God said you would be what?
Sold.
Would be what?
Sold.
What did they do to Hispanics?
Sold.
When they came and Columbus conquered America, Amerigo Vespucci, Ponce de Leon, what did they do to the Hispanics and Native Americans?
Sold unto your enemies.
What did they do to the so-called African slaves in 1619, in 1514? What did they do?
Sold unto your enemies.
That's why you have the last name Johnson. That's why you have the last name Cortez. That's why you have the last name Smith. Those are the slave owners. Those are the people who conquered your nation. Read.
For bondmen.
For a slave man.
Read. And bond women.
And a slave woman. Read.
And no man shall buy you.
And no man was going to redeem us today. That's why you still can go in a Christian church today in 2022 and they still not telling your nationality. Because they teaching the same doctrine from your oppressors. We don't know who we are today. That's a problem. But guess what? God sent men out here to teach you your nationalities so we can fix the error of our ways. Do you understand that, sis? That's the proof that who we are. Read that.
Isaiah chapter 1 and verse 3.
Listen up, bro.
The ox knoweth his owner.
God said an ox knows his owner, a dumb animal.
And the ass his master's crib.
And a donkey knows his crib.
But Israel.
But who?
But Israel.
But the Hispanic man and woman just walking by like we ain't reading the word of God. Read.
Doth not know.
God said you don't know who you are. Read.
My people doth not consider.
And God said his people are so rebellious, they don't consider who they are. They don't consider when a man of God is teaching the Bible that they should listen.
Right.
We don't. We cast it from before him like it's a mistress rag. But little do you know, war is coming to America. That's all we out here to do, to save our people from the destruction. To save the black man from selling drugs one to another, from killing each other in the streets. But we gonna scream and yell when the cop kill you, but when you kill each other, you ain't doing nothing. No snitching. We don't do a damn thing when it's our own people judging our own people. That's a problem, black and Hispanic man. We have been destroyed as a nation of people. Read that again.
Isaiah chapter 1 and verse 3.
Go ahead.
The ox knoweth his owner, and the ass his master's crib.
Read.
But Israel doth not know. My people doth not consider.
God said we don't consider who we are today. That's a problem. That means we're comfortable here in America. We're comfortable as slaves, and we're going to die as comfortable slaves. That's what that means. Well, not us, but the brothers and sisters who don't want to repent.
We used to scream black power while heroin was pushed. But at the end of the day, nothing's in vain. IUIC has been given a vision. The tents of Judah has risen. Many has attempted the mission, minor murmuring, omitting, and missing the mark. Just reading that he had the flame of fire in his eyes gave us the spark. We on Paul's mission. We out on the road, purple and gold, from Mexico, Cuba, Haiti, Ghana, Sierra Leone. 144,000 boots banging, concrete crackling. These are how men repented at heart. The scriptures is proof. IUIC, we deliver the truth.